Hi, everyone. Let's wait for some time for other people to join. See, we are already a good bunch of people. Can you hear me? Is everything working in the meanwhile? Perfect, perfect. Ciao a tutti and good evening. Here in Italy is evening. So let's wait a couple of minutes more because I see the number of people is increasing. So last time we had some issue with the computer audio not working. So hopefully this time I've made some tests and it seems that everything is working. I'll be able to show you the plugin and how it works. So we are 2026. Let's wait a minute more. Where is everybody from? Cool. Cool, guys. So we have quite a good mix of people from all around the world. I was for some reason, I was thinking we were more Euro-based for this kind of webinar, maybe for the hour. But I see a lot of people from outside Europe, so that's cool. So we are 30 now. So I think we can try to start this webinar. So today I would like to talk about TotalEQ. Do you know the plugin? I think if you join this webinar, I think you know what TotalEQ is. It's our visual equalizer. Great, great. You just bought it yesterday. Great. And it's designed to be a very flexible tool. And it has quite a bunch of features that sets it apart from the competition because it can saturate each band individually. And it also has a funky and funny way of emulating analog because we wanted to create the small variations that happens in the analog circuits. So each band, when you turn on the analog emulation, each band it's a slightly different because it gets some random parameters. So if you say you want to set 100 Hertz, the band will not be actually at 100 Hertz, but maybe 104 or 105. It's we have a 10% tolerance, so it's interesting, and also we have simulated the fact that you get some kind of instability when you hit it hard with a lot of current, so on the mainly on the bass part of the sound, and you get frequency sweep, gain reduction, and a little bit more saturation. So it's an interesting analog emulation, and I don't think we have to talk about it that much. I'll share my screen and I'll dig into the session I have prepared. It's not a good song. It's a song from my band, so it's just something made for fun. And can you confirm that you are seeing my Reaper session? So I'm sure that everybody is online. Perfect, perfect. So I'll share computer audio. High fidelity. And let me know if you can hear the song. Perfect, perfect. As you have seen, as you can see, probably see, we don't have any plugin on it. It's just levels and raw tracks. Well, these are not actually raw tracks because they have been processed during recording. So we have a little bit of tape saturation. We have a little bit of compression and a small amount of EQ. But we are going to use the TotalEQ to shape the sound. So I don't know what you do usually, but I usually start with drums because it's the hardest part, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a little bit punky. It's not right punk. It's not exactly punk, but the idea is that So if I, for example, start with an instance of TotalEQ on the kick drum, this is the main interface of the plugin. We right now don't have anything active. The only active button is the link IO that is designed to allow you to almost keep the level constant, because if I increase the level on the input, the output goes the opposite direction, and the same goes if I decrease the level on the input. So it's an easy way to try to keep everything constant. So if I solo the kick and I press play, let me hear it. We have a little bit of spill, and this is the kick. We have our spectrum analyzer, and that shows the peak of the spectrum that stays here, while if I press play, I can see it live. We have two spectrum. Now you see just one because one is from the input and the other is for the output of the plugin. So if I, for example, remove a lot of stuff over here, you see the two spectrums start to differentiate. So you see on the background the input and on the foreground the output of the spectrum. So we have another nice feature that it's called EQ loud. That means that when you engage that, input and output disabled, and the loudness is kept constant using the same algorithm that our CLMS plugin uses. So we have a 400 milliseconds analysis window that analyzes the average sound, the loudness of the sound, and tries to compensate for any difference you make in your EQ curve to keep you with the same, to give you the same loudness on the output. This is useful for monitoring and for trying out different curves. But I would say turn it off when you're done, because since the analysis is done every 400 milliseconds, it can cause some weird artifact if you leave it on, and definitely it's not going to work fine for dynamic EQ, because it will work against the time constant of the dynamic EQ. So I will use it now just to let you hear how it works. If I, for example, increase the bass, or decrease it, the loudness is kept constant, and this is good with an EQ because with an EQ we don't have time varying sounds, so we can use this short analysis window to be sure that we are monitoring with a constant loudness. This is good also on mastering when you put the EQ on the master section, so you are not fooled that with the increased loudness that you may add. If you add a 3 kilohertz small bump, for example, you may perceive the track louder, and you may think it's better, while maybe it's not. So with this feature, you can make sure that you are not being fooled by the loudness. Then I'll turn it off and let you hear the difference now. So it's a completely different effect. Yeah, Tony, yeah, it's something I hate too, because I get fooled quite easily by the loudness, and I'm a person who likes to monitor loud, so I tend to make things louder than they should. So that's the reason why I added this feature, because I use this tool for my own leisure, because I'm not a professional mixer, but I've been mixing for the last 20 years probably, so I have a little bit of experience, even though I haven't released anything commercially. It's like just for my pleasure. I prefer making tools than mixing. So then what we have over here, we have this small button. If you just turn it on, you will see that helps pops up. So you know what every little button is doing, but we don't. Yeah, I honestly I don't do classical music, and I never done that before, but I don't see why it shouldn't be useful, because in the end it's just an EQ applied to some sound. And what this button does is analyze the input every 400 milliseconds and say, okay, it's negative 15 LUFS, so I'm gaining 4 dB over here, then the output is negative 12. Now I will turn it down 3 dB, so it's once again negative 15. So it can be applied to every genre of music. This is not a limitation of the tool. The only limitation you get with this kind of processing is for dynamic EQ, because the dynamic EQ, if I enable that, works with a time constant. So while it reduces the sound, for example, the EQ loudness, equal loudness, may in the meantime lift it up to bring it back to its original level. So this may be something that don't work very well. The dynamic EQ time constant is very slow, so it's not a big of an issue. You can use it to judge your sound, but definitely you can hear the artifact if you leave it on. The amount of dynamic EQ is adjustable just dragging around the dot. We have, for this version of TotalEQ, you have some smart fixed value. Okay, let's say attack and release are always synced to DAW tempo and are around 1/4 note. And while the threshold is relative. So what we are doing here with this EQ is actually creating 2 filters that run in parallel. I'll try to explain. So the first one is the overall, the flat line, the flat sound. The other one is a filter that represents only this area, okay, but inverted. So it's a low pass filter in this case, like it was like this. And these two, the average of these two filters is compared. And so if the area around here is louder than the flat line, the flat one, this means that it has crossed the relative threshold, so its reduction occurs. The same goes in the opposite direction, but with an high-pass filter in this case. So it's a smart way of creating a dynamic EQ that doesn't require you to know about threshold or attack and release or everything. We wanted to create a simple tool. We will probably add some tweak parameter to be tweaked on the next version, but right now it's just an EQ, a dynamic EQ that works like this. So I quickly show you how it works, then we'll get to that later in detail. See, this doesn't work. Then if I lower it, I have to find the sweet spot, just moving it around the dot. And that's it. So just use your ears, and that's what the plugin is meant to be used like that. But let's shape the sound, so we can see how we can create the kick sound. Okay, so I will open it again. So I reset the peak. Then, okay, this is our sound. I don't know what you do, but I usually give a little bit of high frequency over here. And the nice thing about this plugin is that if you click in different area, you already get a default filter that is good for this area. So this is a bell, but this is a low pass. I want a high shelf, so clicking here will give you a high shelf by default. I go at around 4 kilohertz usually, so around here, and give some high frequencies to the kick, because I like the bitter sound. If you want a darker sound, just of course add a little bit of low pass, and you get a darker sound. But it all depends on your tastes here. I'm a hard rock guy, so I want a lot of bitter sound. What we can do is also change the shape of the filter in this case, because this is a nice shelf resonant. That's the point, Tony, that's the region of the frequency spectrum where I click that, decide the default filter. So if I click on the low part here, I get an high pass filter, because that's what you usually use if you are below 100 hertz. Okay, so if you are at 70 hertz, below 80 hertz, now it's the right number, I don't remember it right now, so I have to try it out. If you click below 80 hertz, you get an high pass filter. That's it. If you click at around 100 hertz, you get a low shelf. If you click in the mid range, you get bells. And it goes once again to high shelf after 6 kilohertz, it seems, right? And if you click above 10 kilohertz, I think, you get a low pass filter. because these are the filters that are more useful in this frequency region. So sensible defaults speed up your workflow. That's what we try to do. And of course, for different filters, you get different parameters. Now I'll take back my high shelf. Thank you, Ian. We try always, with every plugin we do, to make you work faster. You can also, of course, use the mouse wheel, or in this case I have trackpad, the trackpad scrolling to change the Q and to change gain and frequency. So you don't have to drag the dot. You can be more precise like this. And of course, you can type and say the frequency you want to get, also the gain, say 9 dB, and the Q, usually 0.7 for me, but I often work with the standard high shelf that is not resonant, but has a nice curve, that is a Butterworth filter, and let's say it's similar in curve to the filter of a typical analog EQ. You don't have the Q parameter usually on the high shelf in analog EQs. So this kind of high shelf here is very similar to the curve of your regular analog EQ with 6 dB for octave of slope. So this is one of my favorites, and I will enable the saturation for that. When I click this button over here, I enable the saturation across all the bands. So the saturation button for the band turned on. Yeah, saturation, JC saturation is a nice feature, and I love it. Usually love it, saturation. So I put it hard to 10 because I want to hear the grit on the beater. Oh, so okay. Let me hear, Matthias. What you say, Matthias? Am I right? Don't get the figure, but kind of linear. Oh, okay. That's something we can work on. Why not? Why not? No, this analog variation that I mentioned before, Luis, is just only available on TotalEQ. It was an experiment, honestly. So it will probably come to other EQs of our line when we update them. But this is the only EQ that has that. And honestly, it taxes a little bit the CPU when you enable that, because for every block of audio, EQs are recalculated, so every parameter is calculated once again, and it taxes a little bit the CPU. I would use it probably on a very big machine, or on the master, or when it matters more. So on the lower frequency, on the drums, when you need some more twist, a little bit of more spice. What do you mean with the Q a bit bigger in the screen? Huh? Do you want me to drag the Q to make it bigger on the screen? Okay, I'm just doing it. Is it better? Okay. Now, sorry. When I have enabled the saturation, you will probably hear, if you listen carefully, that this band adds a little bit more of distortion. So let's try it. So, have you heard? We get a little bit more of grits, a little bit more of a high frequency, and I think it's very cool for a kick drum that want to beat hard to have this little bit more of snap. So I will leave it on. Then we also have the analog button that I was talking about before, and the solo button. This L is for listen, because when this is enabled, you can hear only this filter in action. And we have the mute button that disables the track, disables the band, so you can mute it. I love using Reaper to mix my track because it has a lot of flexibility. Live, in my opinion, is more production oriented. So when I have tracks and I want to mix them, I fire up usually Reaper. And recently, because we are trying to make some plugin for Atmos, I also use Logic because it gives me access to Atmos mixing. Reaper is the programmer, though. You can make it do whatever you want. It's completely scriptable, so that's wonderful in this regard. Then also we have the dynamic button I was talking before. But I will now add another band over here to give you, I want a bell, to give you an idea of how the analog button work. I will give a little bit more of, a little bit lower, the body of the kick over here, and enable the analog button for this band. You've seen when I enabled the analog button, the curve changes slightly. That's because of the tolerance I was talking before. And if I press play, you will probably see it dance a little. Here it is. You see it dances because the kick drowns a lot of current from the virtual circuit. So let's say our capacitors are not up to the task and they leave our transistors without current. So what happens is that the frequency changes, the gain changes, everything dances around. And if I enable a little bit more saturation, you can also hear the distortion that changes. So this is a nice effect in my opinion, but I will let you see that you have to use it carefully because this computer is an i7 and it's using 1% 4 of CPU, and consider it using it on every track. It's going to tax your CPU quite fast. So this is the only drawback. I love it when using saturation. I usually use them together because it gives you more fun, makes the track more fun. But it's up to you. If you like the saturation without the analog on, go on and use it. If you like the analog without saturation, no problem, honestly. So there is no rule. The only thing really to keep in mind is that it's a little bit heavy on the CPU. Then I remove some stuff over here. Okay. So the EQ for our kick, I think, can be ready. What do you think? Would you make the different? I'm simply creating a sound that I like because I like beating kicks. But if you have other preferences, you want to see anything else for the kick, I will turn off our EQ loud button. Then, of course, after this EQ, we need to put a compressor. If you want, I can use quickly. The compressor I would use is our Multicomp Plus. Okay, the TotalEQ trick. The TotalEQ trick is it's called like that because you have two different bands on the TotalEQ that can work in push-pull. That means that while the lower part of the lower band, ciao Maurizio, we're talking about presets. We usually don't have presets for EQs or compressor because they need to be so tailored to the stuff you are mixing that honestly, in my opinion, don't make a lot of sense. But we are planning to bring presets to TotalEQ for the next version. We just need to find some collaboration because, of course, presets are useful if they come from trusted people. As I repeat, I'm not a professional mixer, so we are bringing in some collaboration from professional mixers here in Italy. And we are going to ask them to create some presets for our stuff. So why not? We already did that for the Compressor, and that as presets from mixers. I won't say the names. You can go to the page and see who made them. But we are trying to follow the same route and bring some professional presets to the equalizer. So the push-pull trick we were saying works like on the TotalEQ you have two knobs for the low frequency, one for giving it gain, the other one for reducing gain. The issue here, the trick is that both filters are not at the same frequency. They are slightly different, so you get a resonant EQ. You can do that with our resonant low shelf, sorry, not this one, but low shelf reso, eccolo here. If you give gain and then goes in this direction of the Q, you get the same effect where you boost some of the low and you reduce the lows right before it. So you create space for what you boosted here, and it's a nice trick that is often used when you have clashes between kick and bass or something like that. So you can use it definitely. I won't do it drastically like I did to show you it, but I would say, okay, never go above 4 or 5 dBs because it gets too drastic and you are lifting too much lows. But you can do it with the resonant low shelf. Oh, to be honest, this is not the only EQ that does that. It's a pretty standard feature of every EQ that has a resonant low shelf. Just tweak the EQ and you're going to get that effect. So if you use Reaper, also the rear Q does that. So the default Reaper equalizer. So I will bring back my bump over here. Then I love the FET model. So I can easily say I want to -6 dB. Attack the longest, the release the shorter. And here it comes my kick sound. Quick and easy. And now I will pass to the snare. I will leave the kick on so I can judge if the snare and the kick use the same space. Yeah, it's cool. Multicomp is one of my favorite plugins, honestly, from what we did, because I love compressors, and it has a lot of flexibility with all the models it offers. I'm working now, it's a year, I'm working on that, and hopefully it'll be ready sooner or later on something that automatically sets attack and release for you according to the transient it discovers. It's not working right now, it's in development, hopefully it will be ready sooner or later. So for the snare, I want to clean all the low with a quite steep high pass filter. I don't want anything below, let's say, 80 Hz or something like that, because that's where the body of the kick lies. So it's this one here. So if I am going to cut around this region, we're going to have the body of the kick not interfere with the lowest part of the snare. And so let's say 90 Hz. And so I've cleaned this area over here. You see, with a high pass, we don't have all the controls of the bells type, because we only have frequency, mute button, listen button, analog, and saturation. And we also have the stereo control, because this plugin can work in stereo, mid or side configuration. But it is more useful in the mastering situation, so I'm not doing it now. I'll probably put it on the master later if we have time, because I just want to show you what the plugin can do without going to make the full mix, because I don't think we'll have time. So I will enable once again the EQ loudness, give some highs with my high shelf to the sound. Around 4 kilohertz, 6 dB or something like that. A little bit of saturation on the snare too. I use saturation. I want to tell you this thing. I use saturation because with saturation I can keep the gain lower and have the same effect of adding high frequency, because what I'm adding is harmonics on that band. So with the added harmonics, I get the feeling of more high frequency content without actually adding too much gain to the band. I don't know if this makes sense to you. Then what we need to do is let me listen. Yeah, it lacks a little bit of body, so we want to add a little bit more of body over here. Let's say not more than this, with a tighter Q. Better, now it's definitely better. definitely better. I won't do that anything else because I'm afraid that if I remove the spikes that are here, I remove too much of the body of the snare, so the sound of the snare. The snare has a ringing note, but I don't want to remove it because it gives character to the snare. So I think we are done with the cue of the snare, and I can use another Multicom Plus, and also once again with a FAT model. That's what I like the most, and with a halfway attack, something like that. And once again 6 dB of gain reduction. Okay, we have a good snare sound, snare combo, snare kick and snare combo. What you think? Of course, the mix is not done and it falls out, but it's going to be good once it's finished. I will now work on the room. What you do usually? When I am done with kick and snare, I usually work on the room because it gives me the overall sound of the drums. A/B comparison. That's a great idea. Yeah, why not? Why not? We can easily add it, and it's a great idea to be able to understand if what you are doing is right. So that's a great idea. I will write it down in the feature request list, so it probably come with the next version. Thank you very much for the suggestion. And for the room, I will remove all the low frequency because I don't want the rumble that is in the room mic. Let me hear it. Let me solo it together with the kick and snare so I can hear it in detail. Yeah, that's nice. I don't think any EQ has on the market, so it's a nice idea, definitely. So let me increase the level of the room a little. Here, this is too low. I can barely hear it. Okay, so let's have a little bit more of snare in the room. Not too much. Remove some of the rumble over here, the noise. Make it more clean. Okay, so I won't do a lot more. What we can do is add some saturation to the room to get more aggressive sound if we want. But I wouldn't touch it more than this. And then we squash it like hell. We want to compress it a lot. We want to have negative 18 dBs of gain reduction. bring it up to level so we can hear it. It gives us the sound of the drum. Okay. That's good. Something got strange over here. Okay. Okay. Okay, so we got the basic drum sound. We can open the overheads now. I usually don't want to overcompress, to overcompress the overheads because I want them to be the breathing part of the drum. I don't know what to do, so if you have a suggestion or you usually do something different, just let me know. I will remove the low part of the overheads with a 18 dB for octave filter because it's a good compromise between a step filter and a more gentle. This is not going to remove anything. It's too gentle. This is probably being overkill for this application. So I will use 18. That's incidentally is the standard high-pass filter on analog console. So it's for a reason, and it sounds good and it works fine for this application. So 18 dB octave, and then I will give some a little bit more of high frequency to with our high shelf to the hi-hat, to the cymbals, like this, and of course our beloved saturation. So just using this and keeping the level. Here it goes. Ciao Mario, ci sentiamo presto. Have a nice evening. And I think you get the idea of the drum, where we're going. Then we can also do some bass EQ for the this is we have he's coming from Multicom Plus, I think. Yep. When we compress a lot like that, you usually don't want to have this. It's an analog, but if you can do without this, it's better. Like when we compress heavy like that, because the level is going to be bring it very up. So we're going to have issues on the master then. On the master, that's where I use the very step curve of 48 dB octave to remove everything below 30 Hz, because usually no speaker is able to reproduce anything below 30 Hz unless you are on the big live setup where you have these big subwoofers, but nobody usually can hear below 50 Hz. also sometimes 80 hertz, because you have crappy earbuds, crappy iPhone speakers, and people listen to in this kind of to the music on this kind of devices all day. I don't know how they do, but I've seen a lot of, probably you have seen them too, a lot of people with listening music with a phone speaker. So really, we are just wasting space if we keep anything below 30 Hz. So let's cut everything. And then I like to give a little bit more of aggressive sound here at 3 kilohertz, around 3 kilohertz, just soft bump. And if it's needed, something down here, or remove some of the 400 hertz over here, but let's have a listen before. Yeah, something is needed here. Okay, no more than this, with a very gentle curve. Now we go to the bass sound, and for the bass we are going to first solo it, so we can do it. We're going to make sure that it works with the kick drum, and we are also going to make sure that the finger part of the bass is audible, because otherwise it's going to be just a messy sound. Now this bass is an active pickup bass, so we have a lot of sound in the very low bass region. Well, phase invert, you hear it because when you put together two tracks, this is not the case, but when you put together two tracks, something in the low is going to be off. You can't hear anymore the low ends. How can I, for example, if I enable the phase invert round here, see, it goes away, the sound goes away, even though it's the room track, so it's a background track. But when I invert the phase, it starts to fade away. I don't know how to explain it exactly, the feeling, but that's what happens, because certain frequencies are going to cancel instead of summing together. Mainly the low end, because because phase is more the low end is more sensible to the phase issue than the high end. Because usually you have simpler sounds in the low end. You don't have complex frequencies, complex harmonics. You have a fewer harmonics. So when some of them cancel out because they are out of phase, you can hear it clearly. I don't know if I explain myself, because English is not my first language, so I try to make clear what I'm saying. Now we're working on the bass. So this our bass sound. You can barely hear it. Okay, so it was turned off. So it's very deep bass sound. We are going to remove all this stuff here. We don't care about this stuff. So with our 18 dB octave, let's have an help with the spectrum analyzer to find out the right spot. This is the lowest note, so we are not going to be farther than this. We're going to go farther than this, but we are reducing everything around here by almost 20 dB. And that's what we're going to do to make room for the bass, the whole mix. Then we can also remove everything over here because this is just noise. So we don't inadvertently bring up some sound of the finger of the string or something like that. Then we try to find out where the peaking of the bass sound lies. Okay, it's around here. So with a more gentle EQ, we lift up some of the attack sound of the bass, because this bass is very dark. Otherwise, it would get lost in the mix once we add the guitars. So you see it because you can clearly see it because it also dances in this area, the picking of the bass. When each note starts, you will get a spike over here. We can also do another trick and use the dynamic EQ in this case to reduce the bass if it's too much. Because we have some notes that are higher than other notes. So with this EQ here, we try to keep all the notes at the same level, reducing the level of the notes that sounds higher, louder, sorry, than the others. And like this around here. Okay. We can also add some saturation if the bass is not audible enough. So with this trick, adding saturation, you add harmonics, so you get a perception of higher frequency, even though those frequencies are not there. So this is, I think, this is a good sound. We can work on that. Then for the bass sound, we can use another model for Multicom Plus. I would use the 160 model. It's a very, very common bass compressor with 8:1 ratio. I like it. Also negative 6 dB. So this give us a snappy sound, a snappy VCA sound for the bass. We could have used the FAT model if you like a more in-your-face sound, but this sound in particular, this bass sound, tend to get lost in the mix. So I want something snappier. We will use the optotype on the guitars, so just give me 5 minutes and I show you the optotype. Oh, by the way, I'm leaving the tom mics closed right now, and also the overhead, the hi-hat, because we don't have toms playing in this song, so we don't need those mics. They only add noise to the drum kit, and we may use the hi-hat, but I don't think we need the hi-hat right now in this song. So for the moment, just kick, snare, the room, and the overheads does it. Yeah, Roger, I'm recording this, so you will be able to see it on YouTube in the next days. I don't know if tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, but in the next days, the whole thing will be on YouTube. Yeah, we can make the next one on the compressor. Why not? Why not? So I can talk in detail about all the models and all the feature of Multicom Plus. Now let's move to the guitars. The guitars usually don't get a lot of treatment because these are heavily distorted guitar. And an heavy distorted guitar already is a very compressed sound and a very full band sound. So I will just remove all the lows to not get in conflict with the bass and kick. Of course, I have got it wrong. HP 18 dBs. I could have used a steeper filter, but I don't want to remove too much of the low end. Now I will let it play so I can see the spectrum and see exactly where I need to remove that. So we have the lowest note playing here. We want to get as close as possible without removing that note. And also, we can see that while the sound is pretty good, we have a big issue here. No, because you can't right now. You can't. The dynamic filters in TotalEQ are more of the idea of drag it around until it sounds good. So you don't have a side chaining possibility right now. You should use some other tool or wait for version number 2 where the dynamic section is going to be reworked and improved a lot because everybody seems to like that. Initially I thought let's add it at a plus, and that's why it's very easy to use and it's not so tweakable. But everybody seems to love the dynamic section, so I will add far more feature in version number 2, but it's not scheduled for right now. So I don't know when it will come out. Going back to the guitars, we need to give more highs over here definitely because this is too dark. So with a high shelf, we don't need to saturate guitars because the sound is already very distorted, so you don't have to add anything more, but maybe a lot of highs, yes. And also these, I want to understand what's going on here because we have this strange dip. That's definitely better. Yes, Tony, guitars are full band instruments, so they always occupy the whole range. So what you need to do is make sure that you spread them on the stereo image so they don't get in fights with the snare, the kick, and the bass and the singer, the main vocals, because all they sit in the center. So if you spread the guitars evenly on left and right, you can see that what we did here is to have a lot of guitar tracks that are panned hard left and hard right. So we have the stereo image. I also found that we have some issue here. I don't know, probably it's just panning, just panning. Just you usually don't want to, unless you have a mono track. If you have just one guitar track, that's bad recording, especially if you want a rock sound, rock mix. But what you can do if you have too few guitar tracks, you can use some fake stereo generator, or you can do it by yourself, just duplicating the track and adding a small delay below 10 milliseconds that gives you the idea of a wider track. But keep in mind that doing that will cause a lot of phasing issue, so make sure to remove the side component of the guitar below 200 Hz, 300 Hz, around that, to avoid problems with in the lowest part of the spectrum with phasing and phase conflict between the two fake tracks. I love them hard left and hard right, because when you put everything together, if you have a stereo headphones, you can hear how it works, how it sound. Just you can hear it. It's sounding wide and powerful at the same time, even though we need to give them more body, because what we did is to give them more highs, fix that scope. I don't know where it came out. Probably it's some resonance in the grill, or the mic set dead in the center of the cone, so it didn't pick exactly that frequency, because it's a very strange dip, and we can give a little bit more body around here. This area here, the body of the guitar, the pump, gives the power of the guitar, so I want to give a little bit of boost here. You can hear, the fact is that this bass doesn't cut absolutely at all, doesn't cut at all in the mix. So I will get back to the bass and trying to make it stand out a little bit more, because like it is right now, it's just adding a boom, rumble in the low end, but not giving more power to the mix. So with the EQ, now it's much better. Now it's much better. I can hear it, I can feel it, and it gives a nice power to the lowest part of the guitar, because the low part of the guitar doesn't have to be a guitar. You need to give the power with the bass. Otherwise, you are going to get a lot of rumble, a lot of unwanted stuff and uncontrolled stuff in the guitar. So just use the bass to give the guitar the body. So we should be almost there. Okay, now I can use our Multicom Plus with the Opto model. I love the Opto model on guitars because it's very soft and it just keeps them in control. You don't have to compress them much because it's already very compressed sound, but in the end, final part of the riff, when you get the palm muted guitar, you probably may need some compression help. Randy, just a question, is it not possible to... Yes, it's possible, but we have a couple of issues here. First, Apple deprecated OpenGL some years ago, so they are not supporting officially anymore. And in fact, on the latest version of macOS, OpenGL doesn't work well at all. So we use Metal whenever it's possible. And right now we use Metal on every M1 Mac, and we use OpenGL on Intel Macs just to keep compatibility with older Macs, because there are a lot of people with older Macs that doesn't have access to Metal. Metal has been available from 2012 and later. So it's pretty old technology, but still there are a lot of people with older Macs, mainly professional, that have 2012 Mac Pros that don't have Metal. So we stick to OpenGL for that, but there are issues with the graphic rendering when more than one instance of the plugin is open, so it's not the ideal solution, and we will probably switch to Metal as time goes on, so it just works better on Mac, and it's supported. While on Windows, OpenGL works perfectly fine. On Windows, OpenGL is the way to go. It's perfectly fine, it's supported, so there is no issue at all. Grazie Randy. Scusa la voce, ma sono senza bere. How many people? We are 33 right now running. And let's get back to the guitar and let the plugin do it by itself and find out the right amount of gain reduction, of the threshold for this gain reduction. For the Opto model, we don't have any kind of control. Okay, and this is good, I think. Let me hear it once again. Okay, we are probably starting to have some issue on the master over here. You see that we have the spikes that is probably from the bass, and we are going to fix it using the dynamic EQ and a very high Q. So when this frequency kicks in, we are simply removing it, and we don't have to care about that anymore. Ian, are you on Mac or Windows with that? On Windows. Honestly, I don't know why they dropped it because on Windows OpenGL works fine. I don't see any reason why you should drop it. To go back to CPU rendering is heavier on your CPU, so it removes some of the time, the CPU time that you can use for the DSP. That's why we want to use usually accelerated graphic. I don't know. I don't know. The only reason I can see to remove OpenGL is to go with DirectX on Windows. That is probably better than OpenGL, but you have to write different code. So I would stick with OpenGL. You have the added bonus that once everything is in place, you can also bring your plugins to Linux if you have OpenGL. Probably sooner or later we do that too. I just want to move to the voice now because I just want to show you how we can use TotalEQ as a de-esser. I made a bus and I'm going to use it on the bus because yes, we can go on Linux. We use a framework that is called iPlug2, and there is some work to bring the framework on Linux. So once that work is done, we can move on Linux. At Nyquist, Ronnie, yeah, we don't have oversampling right now. So when you go closer to Nyquist, I'll show you what happens. What happens is that, I need to use a bell to show that. What happens is that the bell becomes asymmetrical when you get close to Nyquist. But I think this is a not issue unless you are going to use the EQ to fix something very specific at higher frequency. You are going to use an ice shelf over here that doesn't have the problem. The problem only appears with a bell, with a peaking filter that becomes asymmetrical closer to Nyquist. But I for one, I usually never use peaking EQs here. I use ice shelf, so in my opinion, this is a non-issue. But oversampling is planned for the version number 2, so this will overcome. No oversampling right now, no oversampling. The EQ was already very taxing, in my opinion, so especially if you enable the analog stuff, so I haven't added oversampling for this reason. Yeah, I'm the main coder. We have some collaboration from other people that wrote some libraries and wrote some part of the code we reuse, but I'm the main coder, and so I know exactly how everything works inside. I use Linux on our servers, and I was using Linux some years ago to make web development. That's it. I never used for music production. I use Windows and macOS for music production. Now I stick to macOS because when you make plugins and you have an Intel Mac with just machine, you can do plugin for Windows and for Mac, just reboot in in a Windows environment. So yeah, makes sense. What you say makes sense. and we will probably enable that. I'm not sure I really like the idea in general, but it makes sense, and I'll explain you why. Because you are listening to something and then you are rendering something with different parameters, so it may sound and behave a little different from what you listened when you mix it. So I prefer to have everything equal. But then again, you have host and do like Wavelab that do whatever they want, instantiating a shadow copy of your plugin in the background when they render. So you don't never know what happens. Hi, Matthias. So I say you goodbye and hope to see you soon. And I wish you a good evening. What I was doing, the vocals. So just enable that, just done, and see if it needs some de-essing. Well, definitely this area over here is all S's. And so what I'm going to do is use the dynamic filter once again. To remove too close.
Cervelli ammuffiti sotto all'immagine di Cristo, professare false parole in chiesa all'anticristo. Mefisto, io per l'inferno voglio il visto che per le bestemmie ho fantasiato di poter riempire un disco come...
Okay, probably it's better if we use a high shelf, sorry, to remove this.
Una generazione senza nome, addormentato dentro il sogno di un pastore, in uno stato che non ha solo un padrone, la disperazione provincia assassina e perdizione. Io non capisco, cervelli ammuffiti sotto all'immagine di Cristo, professare false parole in chiesa all'anticristo. Mefisto.
Perfetto. Okay, this is good. Oh, Courtney, why it glitches? Why does it glitches? We need to find out. Just open a support ticket on our system so we can help you. Randy, you will find it on YouTube. No problem. Yeah, definitely muffled. But we're going to remove lows here so we can bring back some of the highs.
Sotto all'immagine di Cristo, professare false parole in chiesa all'anticristo. Mefisto, io per l'inferno voglio il visto che per le bestemmie ho fantasiato di poter riempire un disco come la chiesa con il fisco, me ne fischio, non c'è rischio, lo Stato dice solo obbedisco, tutto sto laico io non l'ho mai visto, ma osserva se le strisce della croce sopra l'obelisco. Tic toc, il tempo passa, tic toc, tic toc, tic toc, tic. Una generazione senza nome, addormentato dentro il sogno di un massone, in uno Stato che non ha solo un padrone, la disperazione produce assassina e perdizione.
Okay, here we go. The text box in, you mean here in TotalEQ? We can, of course, make it bigger. We just need to write it with a larger font, so there's no problem. Okay, you mean these numbers here, or the frequency, sorry, maybe I lost something. Okay, you are talking about Frex. Okay, I understand. We need to have a look at that. I don't know. Honestly, right now I don't remember how big is that. Of course, I need to remove the lows here, I forgot. We can go up to 100 Hertz or something like that. Okay. So what I wanted to show you is that with just one plugin we can have a de-esser. So with this EQ there is no need for de-esser because we can remove the sibilance straight from the EQ. Now I just add my Multicom Plus and have a nice EV FET sound around here. You can also hit harder. So now we have some noise in this voice, in this vocal recording that comes out once we compress it, but it's not a professional recording, so it has to be expected. Just see on the master what happens. There is something I don't like around here because I want almost a straight line.
Capisco, cervelli ammuffiti sotto all'immagine di Cristo. Professare false parole, chiesa all'anticristo. Mefisto, io per l'inferno voglio il visto. Visto che per le bestemmie ho fantasiato di poter riempire un disco. Come la chiesa con il fisco me ne fischio. Non c'è il rischio, lo Stato dice solo obbedisco. Tutto sto laico io non l'ho mai visto. Ma osserva se le strisce della croce sopra l'obelisco. Tic toc, il tempo passa. Tic toc, tic toc, tic toc, tic. Una generazione senza nome. Peccato nel calzone di un massone.
Okay, now add a small bit of compression with a gentle compressor, let's say 3 dB.
Ammuffiti sotto all'immagine la disperazione produce assassina ripetizione. Una generazione senza nome addormentata dentro il sogno di un massone. In uno stato che non ha solo un padrone. La disperazione produce assassina ripetizione.
Perfect, and we almost have our mix. This is done very quickly, but I think with the basic sound we haven't used any effect, just a keyword compression, and with TotalEQ we did saturation, we did de-essing, we did analog emulation, we did the overall sound, and thanks to Multicom Plus we also managed to compress everything like we should. So from begin to end.
grossa merda che troppo spesso dall'America parte. Come Corrado e i fascisti su Marte. Invadono il mondo da salvatori mischiando le carte. Colonizzatori sempre più buoni padroni, ma con la faccia ci mettono, avanzano con i droni. Gli echi conquistatori col fare da cafoni, carri armati mettono onde che poi suoni. Questa è la questione delle questioni, non sono supposizioni ma pallottole che fischiano in tutte le direzioni. Come quando premio muori, come quando...
So it seems quite good. What do you think about it? What do you think about it? I think we got a pretty good mix in a very short time. So guys, this was the presentation for TotalEQ, and if you want it, you can demo it if you don't have it, and if you have it, you made a good choice. This is just joking. And if you don't have the EQ and want it, you will receive a discount code tomorrow, probably. Since you took part in this demonstration, we're going to give you a 30% discount code. So I don't know if it will be time limited or not. But anyway, if you don't have the EQ, you can get it for discounted price. So guys, I don't know if you have to say good evening, because here it's evening, but have a nice rest of the day or the night. I don't know. So see you on the next webinar. Bye everyone.